Right?
Educational background was a dual degree in math and economics, also like almost finished psychology as well. As you can tell by that, my interests were pretty varied. I was specializing for my math degree a little bit in AI during college, but I was not caught up with the actual forefront research at all. Undergrad degree, they got me to, I want to say 2016 level, and all this crazy stuff didn't start happening until 2017 or so. So I just wasn't aware that AI would be so crazy. And I said, this is kind of boring. It's not like working very well. It doesn't seem very good. But at the time, I was very wrong, but whatever. And I went to work in economics instead. I was doing expert witnessing, patent damages stuff. So Apple sues
Oh,
Samsung. What's that? How the damages number? Like how much money do they get as a punishment, kind of thing. I was making that number. I was doing that for a bit less than a year when ChatGPT came out, and I said, "Oh no, oh no." I see the writing on the wall. I was catching up all of a sudden on the newer AI stuff, and I said, "This is not good for my job." I also disliked it for other reasons and
yeah.
quit. And at first, I was thinking, "Oh, I'm way behind on AI. It must be some crazy PhD level stuff that's way too hard." Because I was the math major, and I did find like some of this stuff is really freaking hard, and I wasn't sure I wanted to do that. But then I was lucky enough to, for one, stumble upon a YouTube video by I think an MIT or Harvard professor or something, where they were laying out one of their newest theories, and I said, "Wow, I have a kind of half-baked, didn't pay attention undergrad math degree, and
Yeah.
I can understand this off the top of my head," kind of thing. This is crazy that the field is like this. And I had a chance or by chance, able to talk to a excuse me, I'm fighting
Yeah.
a cough.
Uh,
I was lucky enough to talk with a bigwig in the field, who gave me the advice and said, if I have the ability to be unemployed off of savings and staying with family for a year or something, and if I have the drive to do it, then I should totally avoid getting a PhD or a master's degree, because right now, uh, you get one of those, it's going to take you years to get it, and you could have
yeah.
learned the same amount of stuff all in a matter of 6 months or a year. So I decided to do that. And just as not taking it seriously, I started posting YouTube videos under the idea of, I have a buddy who wants to learn this stuff. I'm going to help myself learn by teaching him, by recording videos of myself where I'm trying to teach him. I was literally in my first many videos talking to my buddy. His name is Cal. But I found that despite the fact that I was posting no title, like a very simple title, no thumbnail,
Yeah.
and just ranting about
Yeah.
newest AI papers and what I was reading them and everything, I started to get some traction. And since then, it's been growing, and I've transitioned into actually caring about the YouTube and doing it correctly a little bit. But yeah, so right now I am uh, primarily doing YouTube, not so much as like trying to get the YouTube channel big, but more so I'm doing research and uh, sharing that research process on YouTube. Big interests being natural language processing, mech stuff like that, where I'm just reading papers and critiquing them or providing my thoughts and brainstorms and crazy rants based off of them, or I'm sharing little code projects I'm doing, that kind of stuff. There's a surprising amount of consistency between findings we have in psychology that are old and new findings in AI, as well as new findings in AI that help teach us about psychology. I could get all into that if you wanted to. And then even the economics thing, right? Like just thinking
Yeah.
about that one a bit less so, obviously. The connection is looser, but there have definitely been times where I've thought, like, wow, this knowledge is helping me to some degree, and thinking about what are my predictions for how this technology scales as the economy starts pumping money into it and we get more resources and whatnot. There's interesting stuff with overlap. So I definitely do love the generalist approach. I love starting from a wide base, and I'm glad I have done that for sure.
Yeah, for sure. So, let me get before we get into your research and all, before we get into all the technical stuff, I want to ask one question, which is actually,
Mhm.
which is very important to me and other friends of mine. So, how important is a degree when getting into like research and all? Like, should we even care about like getting a degree, or should we completely focus on like self learning and stuff?
So certain people, I would say most people, need the degree just in a sense of direction. Most people, like, it's hard to self-learn. You can wander endlessly and you can fall very off track. A degree, the structure of it, I would say for most people, it is helpful. The other thing is, when you're getting a degree, presumably that is setting apart a large chunk of time in your day, week, year, whatever, towards learning this stuff. Whereas
Yeah.
self-teaching, if you've got to maintain a job, it's one thing if like, oh, you're like I'm have the luxury of I went living off savings for 6 months and now I'm at home for the another 6 months kind of thing back with my parents, right? I have that
Yeah.
extreme privilege and luxury to where I
Yeah.
can just commit all my time. Most people can't do that. Like I'm in a very privileged point to be doing that. So I would say like, you know, taking out some here in America student debt, right? And then
Mm.
committing a 4 years to a degree can be very helpful in that sense. It's hard to work a job and self-study, especially
Yeah.
if the job you're doing. Like when I was working at the law job, you can imagine like law-based stuff. I was not working 40 hours a week. I wish I was working 40 hours a week. And I was trying to, on top of that, beyond 40 hours a week, do research, and
Mm.
it just was not going well. There just isn't enough time, kind of thing, right? Like at a certain point, I was getting no social life for a little bit there when I was trying to do it. It just wasn't working, right? So there's asterisks to it. I will say there are asterisks. That being said, if you are someone who has the ability, like maybe like what you can carve out 10 hours per week or whatever it is, right? On top of I think you're in high school, right? Something like
Yeah.
that, or you on top of your actual degree, on top of your actual job. And you are someone who is really dedicated and you're building systems for yourself and you're ensuring you stay on track. It's very possible. It's certainly very, very possible to do this. Like I said, the bigwig researcher who I was able to talk to recommended to me based off my circumstances that I go ahead and do it myself. Just because, if I were to have done the degree routes and try and gone back for a master's in deep learning, I would have been applying, like my applications being sent in. So so he told me this in this last July, right?
Yeah.
I would have been sending applications in this past December and starting this upcoming November. All right. That's
Okay.
a whole over a year time lag to start the degree, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
in my circumstances, I've already got like connection with researchers based off of this past 9 months of YouTube and doing my stuff myself. Like things are going much more quickly because I have that intense amount of free time to do this and I'm self-teaching, whereas I wouldn't even have started yet if I were waiting to get into grad school. So
Mm.
it's circumstantial, but I do also want to say like I think the future is in self-teaching. I think that is going to be
Yeah.
more prevalent as time goes on. I think that universities are going to have to transition and as well as high school, middle school, et cetera, transition their learning style hugely. Now that we have GPT 4.0 that can teach you pre-calc and everything right there on an iPad or whatever it is.
Yeah.
I really think that we will be transitioning more into self-learning. We're transitioning more into intrinsically motivated learning rather than teacher
Yeah.
slap your wrist with a ruler kind of thing. And I think that if you can get ahead on that, you do have a huge leg up because at the end of the day, like you can go get a degree and get a job and then never learn a new thing again.
Yeah.
And depending on your field, that can work. But some fields you get fired, right? If you were a computer science degree back in the 80s and you didn't bother to learn anything new since then, you've lost your job by now. You're not working computer science anymore. Like to a certain degree, some jobs have already had that quality of the ability to self-teach is crucial. And as time progresses, it seems that's happening more and more often. More and more jobs will require that of you, of just like you're spending half of your time at this point self-teaching, not even being productive, just self-teaching. So I really do recommend it if you have the option and the drive, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah. Very true. Like here in India, degree is considered like a prerequisite, right? For anything,
Mm,
you have to have a degree. And also, they're all, there is not, there are not like a huge evaluation metrics, right? For example, if
mm,
a company comes, right, if they want to hire someone, degree is like the only metric they look at, right? And the grade is like the only metric they look at. Maybe in India, degree is kind of required because maybe it's like companies look at it and it is considered like a prerequisite something in our country.
mm.
That is,
Yeah, that's huge too. That's like, as I was saying, circumstances, right? Like
yeah,
here in the US, it is still mostly the case that like people don't want to listen to you if you don't have a degree. Like they're going to look at your resume and like throw it away. But it's not completely the case. And when you look at let's say your goal is a big company like Google, Meta, Apple, whatever. So with them, it's really not the case. They really don't care quite as much, right? It's
Yeah.
hard to get that first eyesight on you if you don't have the impressive degree, whatever, such an impressive one for those companies. But once you can get eyesight, like for example, I am right now trying to get eyes on my stuff based off of YouTube instead of based off of like submitting an application and all this stuff, right? Because of that circumstance, I do have the ability to do this. Where like I happen to be near a huge population center in America. I'm near Washington D.C., right? So
Uh,
I have the ability to, for a good number of these companies or whatever, just based off networking, to go meet someone who works there and get eyesight through that manner. Whereas like I can't speak to India at all, obviously,
yeah.
but I have a friend who what she does for a living is she processes the paperwork to get people from many countries, but mostly India, into the United States, visas, I think, or whatever.
Oh,
AI, like mostly for AI jobs, because that's like the big one right
yeah.
now, right? And I imagine it would. I don't know India very well or her scenario specifically, right? But it's probably easier for her job to go to the United States government and say this person needs a visa. We want
Yeah.
they'll be useful if
Yeah.
they have a degree from IIT, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Versus um versus like someone who's self-teaching in India, fully self-taught. Like, how do you talk to a government official who doesn't know anything or care about that? Like, I have the
Yeah.
ability to talk to people who are like rarely at Google and who know that that doesn't matter as much, but a government official. So
Man.
my point is just it's circumstances, right? So
Yeah.
it might be more important for where you are just based off of circumstances. I don't know fully, but I wouldn't
Yeah.
be
For sure.
surprised.
Yeah. Yeah. Nice point. So
Mhm.
yeah, let's
In
get
that
into.
case, do both though. Just do both.
Oh yeah. We could, yes, certainly. So yeah, let's get to the next topic. I mean, like I want to move this interview very fastly. So,
Mhm.
language modeling. You haven't been a huge advocate for GPT, right? Because it merely like predicts the next word, right? You talk about it's maybe yeah. You come up with some architectures by yourselves, and even I am not a yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Might
wouldn't say I'm
yeah.
not a huge advocate. I acknowledge that it's the thing right now. And I just think that like all technologies, there'll be something next. Like we're gonna have something
Mm,
bigger, better, whatever it is. As far as I'm concerned, the we're still in a brute force type of dynamic here where like attention GPTs, they really are just brute forcing the problem. They are
yeah.
not as uh as I don't know, majestic as simple as they maybe could be. And we have not solved that problem yet. Most of what I do though is GPT based, given that that is the prevailing dynamic right now. I expect that because I am working off of trying to get a reputation still and everything. If I were to come up with something absolutely crazy, just no one would look at it. Like even if it got posted to archive or whatever it is, it's easier to get it looked at and be read through, given that it's building off of the prevailing thing right now. So the stuff I'm doing is GPT based, but to the extent that researchers doing GPT based stuff, mine's usually pretty weird. I'm pretty out there with how much I mess with that base GPT formula, if that makes sense.
Yeah. 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 Complete 11. Like I do agree. Like GPT works, right? Like,
Mhm.
but if you look at the intuition like of what it doesn't really make sense, right? I mean, it doesn't like if I compare a human with a GPT, there seems to be some sort of some sort of new thing that a human has. Right? The human is not just predicting next word, but rather he's creating like concepts and how to let's
Mhm.
say how to speak, and he's yeah he's planning the future of what he has to say and all, and that is why you have developed future former, your own architecture. Can you please like talk us through that? Like what do- what are the more
Yeah,
inspiration and all?
yeah, that was one of the ones I did, and you alluded to next token prediction not being
Yeah,
ideal. That
yeah,
is one of my critiques of GPTs. All my projects, I would say that they have a gazillion versions that just don't look like each other. Future Former has gone through so many iterations, all of which were bad, all of them. My next one is hopefully not going to be as bad. But the idea being that trying to teach them a thing to learn about the world through just predicting the next token, the next word, right? Will get you pretty far. I love pattern recognition. I don't want to talk down on the potential for intelligences that are good and non-human like. But I look at it and I say, there are a few experiments showing scenarios where next token prediction is just straight up bad. But I mean, like, not just that, oh, maybe if we scale up, it'll fix. There are cases of what are called in distribution failure, meaning you can build a GPT whatever size you want to, but for this specific type of task, next token prediction will never work, even on your training data set. I forget the actual the we shouldn't get too far into it. I have
Uh,
a video called, I think it's like next token predictions flaws or something like that.
yeah, I
But there
do,
are
you do.
certain tasks, yeah, there are certain tasks that just do not work with next token prediction. And are those tasks that important? I think honestly we can get by to pretty close to AGI, maybe even AGI without it, but it is a limitation that we could also try and fix and maybe increase our odds, right? So when I look at this idea of future former that I have, is essentially the way I also view this from a psychology point of view, not like in research or like academia when I learn, more so just my intuition as to how my own brain works, how it feels like it works, is I don't think we humans are only ever considering and thinking about predicting the next millisecond of stuff
Yeah.
to happen. I think we have this kind of like weird layered hierarchy. We are predicting out a little bit a year from now, a bit more so a month from now, a good amount a week from now, and a day from now, a lot the next hour, and then most of all
Mm.
the next millisecond, so next token, right? I
Yeah,
think we have this kind of layered
I got.
approach where we are obviously capable of thinking of multiple time periods, and kind of the goal with this next or future former and everything, and also my next concept prediction that are kind of merging into one architecture right now, is to give the model some way to think way ahead is kind of the goal.
Yeah.
And to get specific for those who are technical, the current version that I am working on is basically, instead of just next token prediction, what I want to do is I want to say, all right, I want to use a diffusion model that predicts all of the remaining text all at once instead of next token prediction.
Uh,
I want to use a diffusion model that does all of that text and only use it as like a planning setup of like it's not the actual output, it's just a loose abstract planner that then my next token predictor can
use
attend to, can pay
use.
attention to and
Uh,
use as a resource so it can kind of hopefully at like a not a token level but like a bit of a higher level plan out roughly what it wants to say in this conversation and use that, take that into account when it is making its next token. That's the rough idea.
uh, sure. And what about fractal form or something like other one? It is inspired by
Yeah,
like some other mat some GPT. I don't remember the name of it. Used
yeah, so
yeah. Uh,
excuse me. The mat former, and mat is short for matryoshka, which is if you've seen
uh,
those Russian nesting dolls, the
uh,
idea that these researchers had that I'm building off of is they said, what if we don't just look at the whole GPT itself? What if we like take a little slice out of it, like a smaller Russian nesting doll inside, and we simultaneously with the actual main body train the smaller piece to be just as good on its own. Not quite as good because it's smaller, it's not going to work as well, but we simultaneously train itself. And like if you think of matrices, we just slice out a quarter of the total matrix and we use just that quarter and we train a whole model, like an independent submodel inside to work. And then same thing, 2 layers in, a tinier model inside, right? That's the idea of matryoshka former or mat former that these researchers, I think it was Google maybe, had and have been publishing recently. And it's very cool because it allows for you to have tinier models that act with bigger models. My impression based off how they act is that Claude's or Anthropic's Claude models might work this way. But and I know OpenAI uses it for their embedding models, but they have not, to my knowledge, used it for an actual GPT model. And it's cool. My whole thing, my goal with Fractal Former, eventually I need to go back from scratch on the drawing board a little bit there, is I want not just a big model and one submodel and then
mm,
another submodel inside. I
mm,
want like a big model and many different subs. So like if you think of the square of the square matrix, right? How
yeah.
we have said like a quarter of the matrix was spliced out. I want to
Mm,
use all 4 quarters
mm,
for 4 separate models that
okay.
simultaneously interact together. And like not just like I want to have four models inside to have four models. I think like you need to have a reason to have these extra models in there, but the reason being specialization. So we look at really these cases like the tiny stories paper, if you've seen that,
Mm.
or like a more familiar with like the Phi series of models, Microsoft's Phi series. Their whole thing with textbooks are all you need, where like you could they said, hey, instead of doing a whole train off the entire internet, we can specialize it. We can just give it high quality textbook questions and it will perform very, very well
Uh,
beyond its size because of this very specialized, very high quality data. What I want to do with Fractal Former effectively is train individual models that are specialized. One is good at maybe science paper writing, one is good at creative writing, etc. Right? And basically we train these independent models that are on the kind of like the Phi series type thing, right? Where they're smaller than they should be, but they're surprisingly high quality because specialization. And then I want to kind of combine them together, concatenate them all
mm,
into one. Hence
mm,
this, and then do that recursively up and up layers many, many times over and over and
oh,
over again. Hence the many layers and self similarity is the whole
mm.
fractal word. Honestly, I just love using the word fractal because it gets YouTube hits. I've learned that. But take whatever idea you have and use fractal in the title, and it'll do well.
And also
People love
meta.
that stuff.
Use the word meta a lot of times.
Meta, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, man. Meta's a great one too. But my eventual goal with Fractal Former is like the thing I'm working towards is I kind of want all of us, each individual person, to have their own model that is specialized to Joel, specialized to Evan
Mm,
to a certain extent, right? Like a little model that just knows what Evan likes, what's kind of questions he wants answered or whatever it is, how to copy his personality, that kind of thing.
mm,
And I want to be doing these recursively combinations of models into a kind of hive mind type thing. And through that process of we all have our own input to our own sub piece, and the total biggest version combination is combined together. I want that biggest version that hopefully one day AGI to be effectively have all of our own moralities inputted inside of it through that process, such that instead of Silicon Valley tech bros in pushing their own morality onto ChatGPT, GPT-4, every human on Earth has like a equal to how much they care to input, say, into how the biggest, best model works. And also just the fact that we're doing small models training first and combining them hopefully saves on training time rather than like training a big model, throwing it out, training a new and bigger one from scratch. I
yeah.
want to say like we can save a lot on
Parallel.
CO2 emissions and stuff, hopefully, by combining them together and kind of reduce, reuse, recycle these older specialized models is the idea.
Very cool, Evan. Uh, but I think both of these ideas are very cool, and I think you should keep working on them. And I think the future form idea and the fractal former, the ideas are like very buildable. Like you could build them.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe like try to come up with some research paper or something. Have you did that? Like,
Exactly.
have you wrote like a any article or research paper? I think it will be very cool.
Uh,
The idea is very
yeah, back
relatable.
back before I was doing AI stuff, I was doing research for the law firm I was working at, and as well as my economics degree was in statistics, economic statistics stuff, and I was doing um, any viewers who are familiar with like the deep statistics, not deep statistics, but like advanced statistics rather than machine learning. I was doing vector autoregression research stuff, but I have not published any research paper on AI. The thing with my architectures is like I'm a bit of a perfectionist,
Uh,
and I'm at this point where like some of them have kind of worked. I've had a few ideas where I'm like, oh, this
yeah.
kind of shows results, like it is working better, but like it's not hitting my funny bone, my little like this is
Uh,
it kind of thing. You know what I mean? It's not hitting my um and most of them don't even do that. Most of them are just failing. Just it's failures
yeah.
all around, constant failures, right? Um and I do plan to eventually, hopefully sooner rather than later, hit on one that I'm enjoying and liking a lot, and then I'm willing to start building up and scaling up. Luckily, uh, right, making a GPT-2 size model
Mm,
nowadays is surprisingly not that expensive, given like
yeah.
how compute has gone down, kind of thing. And for a paper up on archive and even some journals, given that I'm independent kind of thing, GPT-2 size is respectable enough. You can
Yeah.
do a comparison and everything and make your claim as to why it's better than a baseline rather than comparing to
Mm,
state of the art or anything. So that is the goal for sure.
Yeah.
But as of yet, I have not. As of yet, I have been posting just in YouTube videos. It's just I'm going for a iterate quickly, just
Yeah.
trying like constant, fast is the goal. Because I know that my first idea and my 100th idea are not going to be good. That's just not how it works, right?
Yeah, for sure, Evan. Again, I think you should like I had like search searching was a bit hard. Like your work is like very hidden and it's actually very intuitive and it might help. Like it might have some influence on the field. Maybe you should like
Mhm.
get them little mainstream or something.
Yeah, I
Explore into
hope
that.
so.
Yeah,
When a paper happens, that's the goal kind
yeah,
of thing, and I'm gonna be like linking to my YouTube channel in the little
yeah,
footnotes or something like that
yeah,
kind of thing. And it's growing for sure.
yeah.
I've
You
just
will.
recently, the past 2 months, figured out how to really grow while
Mm,
also maintaining I feel like my dignity and not turning into a Wes Roth reaction type YouTuber or anything. So we'll see how it goes. I'm optimistic.
yeah,
But my ideal scenario is I would love it if I could independently off of YouTube, support myself and stay independent with research. That would be my ideal. And I'm doing that. Like I think it's working so far because I've got the YouTube's making a little bit of money so far. Hopefully more soon. Not a whole. It's not a whole lot at all.
mm.
But the I've had people who are in the fields and have access to compute offer me, hey, I have a compute cluster. Let me know when you want to use it, kind of thing. And that's crazy. Like the fact that I don't have to rely, or hopefully will not have to rely on getting a job at Google or something is huge.
Yeah,
Being that given that I've really been offered compute so far, so I'm excited for the future, definitely.
yeah, for sure. So the next topic I want to talk about is building responsible AI. When I was a kid, like there were many like sci-fi narratives and movies and books that says like AI is going to like take over everything. It's going to like kill everyone for some task. And even my parents were like, don't go into AI. You might destroy the world or something. They say that. So yeah, one thought I had at the beginning when I watched Avengers Age of Ultron. Have you watched that? Avengers Age of Ultron. Uh,
Can you say that again?
Avengers Age of Ultron. Avengers.
Oh, Avengers: Age of Ultron. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
it was like
don't get me wrong.
it's
So I am in a minority. Do you want to keep, or is it, sorry, I was interrupting you.
no. Please,
Okay.
yeah.
I'm in a minority viewpoint. I really get the sense that uh notice every single movie ever with AI in it, or almost all of them, have this Age of Ultron style, like it's
Yeah.
gonna kill us all. Uh, as far as I'm concerned, it makes for a good Hollywood movie, right? Like
Mm,
humans, we are very like, same thing with alien movies. Like you've never
yeah,
seen an alien movie where like the aliens are just good and will come and want to help
yeah,
us, kind of
yeah,
thing,
yeah,
right? Like we humans are by default afraid of the other,
yeah.
and it's a good other to create. It's like you because there's no one knows what it is. It's only a
Mm,
hypothetical concept, right? As far as I'm concerned, most of the fears and worries about Age of Ultron type stuff are mostly unwarranted. I do see huge risks. There's so many ways I can go
yeah.
on and on about huge risks. Don't get me wrong, but the idea that it's going to just wake up and be like conscious in a way that it wants to kill us,
Yeah,
I see as we're projecting, is my personal opinion. We
yeah,
are projecting the fact that we humans have a history of being violent towards each other and towards other species, and we're projecting that onto those things. I don't see a reason why a quintillion parameter next token predictor would be anything other than just the prompt that you started off with. And I
yeah.
do think like if AGI ends up being just GPT 6, 7, 8, if it's literally just that, don't get me wrong, like people will go about giving a bad prompt. Like we have bad actors. Like whereas today, at least in America, like if you're a nihilistic 17-year-old, you shoot up a school. That's the way to like do terrorism in America, right? In 5 years, it might be that you prompt GPT-8 or a localized local llama GPT-8 to hack into your school's outdated server or whatever and like
Mm,
cause a fire in the building. Like
yeah,
there's like I really see humans as a larger threat. Not only that, when I'm thinking about like saving the world from AI. So I mentioned the big wig who I get some advice from. His name is Paul Christiano. If
mm.
you've heard of RLHF, I think he was the lead author on the RLHF paper,
Oh
right?
yeah,
And he's very focused on the traditional sci-fi risk because he's right there or was with OpenAI making the biggest thing. And their worry, because they're the ones making the biggest thing, is they have to worry about it waking up. But like, I'm
Yeah,
not part of OpenAI. I'm not going to be in the room. That's his problem to solve, and he's a very, very smart guy. And I hope he does solve that problem and figure out how to align the thing. I'm concerned with the fact that 5 years after he solves that problem and they make the first AGI, 5 years later, you're going to have local llama AGI on your computer. All right.
yeah, yeah.
And when that happens, when every single person can just fine tune it themselves or whatever,
Mm,
or like prompt engineer it themselves, um, to that degree, my concern is that I want to create a system like an economic, political, technology, whatever the heck system that is robust to the continual creation of bad AGIs, of evil AGIs. Because I think that even when Paul solves that first problem of like not waking up,
mm.
they're gonna have teenagers in their basements who
Yeah.
hate the world making these things, and no matter what you do to align the first one, they can just change your code. All right,
Yeah.
sorry. I want to
Mm,
create a system that is robust to that, that is not fragile, that will actually protect us from constantly Age of Ultron
mm,
beings being made is my whole thing. That's what I see my uh contribution or our contribution at
mm,
our age
mm.
being, given that we are not the millennials tech bros. We don't have access to like when it's gonna wake up. Like you're in high school, I'm still not gonna be there. But by the time that like the thing wakes up in 2 3 years or whenever it is, chances are neither of us will actually be able to influence it by that time. We'll
Yeah.
be like starting the career. I really see our contribution of Gen Z as like the new age economic
Mm,
whatever system that we
yeah.
create in this new world, not as the first Age of Ultron issue. That's
Mm,
for millennials to deal
yeah.
with, is my opinion.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Like in the movie, like you know, Iron Man, like Tony Stark, like wanted the Ultron to create peace, right? Wanted Ultron to create peace and all, and and Ultron like misunderstands it, and it comes to a conclusion that killing all the humans will bring
Mhm.
us peace and all. So I think no, recently I've also seen a debate from Oxford University. Like, they were debating on if AI is dangerous or not. They were debating, and the main point that that the people that the people that are opposite to AI development, the main point they were stressing is that if AI gets very powerful, it will take over us, right? This notion of the notion of uh, AI getting more powerful, I think it is completely misunderstood. If as we as AI engineers and who understand like what happens in the AI architecture, we understand that a powerful model is a model that understands uh, humans' needs, right? For example, a powerful model is not a strong bull or something. A powerful model is something that the more powerful the model is, the more it can understand about humans, right? So this notion is not
Mhm.
understood by a lot of people. They think the more powerful the model is, the more it can like overpower us, and not more it can understand us, right? I think if we further like if we start building more powerful AI, it's just going to be uh, more towards our needs. It's going to more understand our needs. Maybe it is going to be conscious in a good way. Like that is maybe the must situation. Only that is going to happen if it gets more powerful, and it is not going to be like overpower us. Like, that is my point. What do you think? What do you think?
um yeah, I mean, it's definitely true that it will have better understanding of what we want as it gets better. I fully agree with that. Will a given model care to act on understanding, right? So like you can still set up a system prompt to be you are evil GPT, you understand humans very well, but like you should go about ruining that kind of thing, right? It's like
Uh,
I definitely agree that like the misunderstanding point of like Age of Ultron where he like misunderstood like or misinterpreted, I guess, the goals
yeah,
is silly.
yeah, very.
And and even the way that like the way the misinterpretation happens, like yeah, yeah. sorry, I'm losing my train of thought a little bit, but I think I mostly agree with what you're saying. I do, however, think that like my again my the way that I do see threats is very much in the realm of like people who are using these models that
Uh,
do understand humans
yeah, again,
well
yeah,
and just don't care. And you give it a if it's still a prompt based system, if it's still like whatever the prompt is, it'll go off that next look at prediction. And like I can't say that understanding humans well will fix anything if it's not properly early chefs and all this stuff. But I think overall, yeah, like the this sci-fi idea that it's going to just totally misunderstand or go off the walls for no reason or whatever it is, in my mind is kind of silly.
yeah,
But I don't know. We'll see. I would say more likely than that would be uh uh like economic issues like drift,
mm,
like what happens when we put this thing self-sufficient on a decentralized blockchain or
mm,
something, and its whole job is like make profit, right?
yeah,
Like we can see how that's going now for the world and everything, not
yeah,
to get into communism, capitalism, whatever, like there's issues of both, obviously. But you can imagine a world where where Google or some company takes their new AGI they have, they say make profit, and they give it that goal. They put it up on the servers, it replicates itself onto other servers, and it goes about just making maximum money and just hoarding it kind of thing, and just not caring about other stuff. Like I agree with the whole instrumental convergence idea loosely, which is why, like again, I want to create a system that is robust to these bad actors, right? So I guess that's my thoughts. I don't know if I rambled a little bit there, but
yeah. No, yeah, yeah, good, nice point, David. And also, you made one video, like I think a pretty early video on like you are covering a research paper that said AI becoming dangerous on its own is much lesser dangerous than some people using AI and completely controlling the world and all. The paper advocated that alignment techniques. They critiqued alignment techniques, and they said AI should be independent by itself and like not be controlled by some person. Like, do you remember that paper? Like, some symbiosis. No, I should.
Oh, that's an old one. You're digging deep.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, that paper was super. I want to say that I already had that opinion in my head by then,
yeah,
but like they wrote it down first, so it's theirs.
yeah,
So I got it from them. Like you know
yeah,
what I'm saying? Like I'm not gonna take credit or anything. I didn't write a
yeah,
paper.
yeah,
But that paper certainly big influence on what I'm thinking. Like when I say like a
yeah,
system plus to them, I really want symbiosis. That is
yeah.
exactly right. I want a scenario where like our it's not that we are aligning them by whipping them into shape. It's that
Mm,
we are aligning them by like aligning their interests with our interests. Right? It's a very different
yeah, yeah.
whipping someone into shape.
It's
Like
like
literally the whip. Like
controlling.
think about that. Like it's not a great way to make
Yeah,
someone like make someone work well with you in the long term. It might work for
yeah,
like the first 100 years of America's history,
mm,
but eventually the American Civil War kind of thing, right? Like
yeah,
it's not a good idea to use the whip in an alignment, right? Whereas their whole point was, yeah, symbiosis is um, what are their goals? What are our goals? And I think most likely they're going to be the same thing overall. Like when you have us, where the best way for us to improve our standard of living is to progress science, to make goods and things cheaper, to automate away our work processes, all this stuff. Uh, why would an AI want to enslave us when it can do the job faster?
mm,
Why would and when you have the system that is like information based, presumably an information based system that like learns off good information, its whole goal will be find more information, study, do science
mm,
is my impression. That's like a Musk thing too, is make an ad that's curious. Is I really see like a lot of our interests aligning. And a big thing I think people don't realize that with these systems, people are thinking about like a competitive dynamic off the get-go of like, oh, it's immediately us versus them kind of thing.
mm,
But let's think for a second, like if we get a system that is the simplest version of AGI. Just it is as smart as an above average human, like it can
mm,
be a replace a given analyst or like a mediocre scientist, right? Even then, if it's just that only that good, it's not quite an Einstein level good. Um, it can duplicate itself 10,000 times or whatever it is across supercomputers and run in
mm,
parallel, right? At
yeah,
a certain point, its problem solving ability might become so high, and I think it will become so high, like so crazy good at problem solving, that it's actually easier and simpler and quicker for it to just help us solve our problems and make us happy and
Mm,
then move on and increase the production capacity of its electricity and all this stuff after
mm,
that to fight us. Because one of these systems, like trying to fight us, even if it's like super clever and it bides its time and it like ruins humanity, whatever, like there's so many nukes around the world, but like certain people would nuke or bomb data centers. Like an actual like sci-fi movie, human AI war
mm,
is not the best interest of
mm,
any AI. Like it's not, it doesn't have, even if we get a couple million of these like new robots we're seeing, Tesla Optimus or a Boston Dynamics thing, even then, like you're not gonna have a good time in a war against humans. You probably want us cooperating and helping
mm,
you out from go immediately. That's gonna work
mm.
way better for you than trying to like take away, take over immediately. Like the you can exist on a very small footprint of the earth because you're a computer. Like you can literally just
Mm.
have a few data centers, maybe big ones, like they'll be big, but like you could take up the entire Sahara Desert for all we care of data centers. Make it cool. And like that's gonna be great for you. And like it doesn't make any sense for you to like fight against us, create a nuclear
Yeah.
war, or the ecosystem. Now you can't get solar production or you can't get energy. Like just none of it makes sense. This whole sci-fi scenario in my mind, it's like it's very Hollywood, very overly uh fearing, not optimistic enough.
Yeah. So what, like one question, as you were saying, the one thought I had in mind is that, like, do even AI has have their own interest and all? Like, is there an like personality that they hold and their interest and all? Like, I see
I
it as mere math models and all, like mathematical models. And do you
Yeah,
think?
but keep it like I would say if you want to like anthropomorphize it and ask, do they have like these feelings and like poetic desires? No. Like
Yeah,
that
sure. Yeah,
as of yet. And we can definitely give that to them through RLHF. If you fine tune
fine tuning.
RLHF
Yeah.
the thing to like have a to really be obsessed with like moral purity or something like that, you can make it happen. But like at a base level, it's not like they don't have a very human-like uh personality, want, desire, but they do still have want, desire, drive in the form of the loss function. Like it's the
Yeah.
loss function, it's predicting the next token, right? Like they do
Yeah.
have an intrinsic desire that is there. Now, once you take a GPT and you finish training it and you set it off to be chat GPT in the real world, there is no more loss function. And you're right, it is just matmos. Like it
Mm,
is, right? But even then, there's uh this line of MechInterp, or not MechInterp research, but theoretical research maybe, I forget. I'm bad with the terms,
mm,
but that basically says like when you look at the first prompt you give it and you look at its output, right? There's a good argument to be made that it actually is optimizing, that you are creating with your prompt, like the specific order of
mm,
tokens you put in there, you are creating a law effectively optimization landscape, a loss landscape that is going to travel along, optimize along, which is what it's doing. That's giving you the next few tokens, right? Like even though the loss function is not still being applied for gradient descent, it
mm.
is still acting in a way that is conforming to the loss function, right? And when you give it a prompt, you are giving a specific, this scenario specific tweak to that loss function. You are saying, here is my prompt that tells you be good or be bad or whatever, be a nice chat GPT or go be evil GPT, right? Like I don't think, I really do think that like a lot of researchers and philosophers, whatever, are like, oh, we shouldn't anthropomorphize these things. No, humans have been anthropomorphizing rocks for
Mm.
thousands of years. We have been looking at like streams and saying that is a water nymph, stream, spirit, god, or whatever, right? Like, and it's not because it's not useful. Like, prescribing uh desires and wants to a thing is totally a useful way to view the world. It is a probably the most fundamental way with which we view the world, right? Like does the river literally have thoughts and opinions or whatever? No.
Mm.
But like you could say it wants to flow. And if you try and build a dam, it will want to flow and it will
Yeah.
resist you. Anthropomorphizing is crazy useful. And these models, they want to predict the next token based off the prompt that you gave. And if you give it an evil prompt, it's going to want to go do evil things or whatever. And if you give it a good prompt, it'll be a good little assistant kind of thing. Like I do think thinking of them as having desires is counterintuitively overall useful, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, for sure. And talking about consciousness, do you think this is consciousness, like having a personality, like having a desire and all? Because I don't really understand like uh, about consciousness and all. Is this
Yeah.
personality and like personal tendencies? Is this consciousness and all?
So there's the terminology here is so or all over the place, and like
Yeah.
it's just a nightmare, and it's
So,
been
yeah.
thousands of years and we just haven't gotten very close. My own framework that I use is I first think about like what are we defining, right? The thing that perplexes me about consciousness is this idea of like why do I have a subjective experience? Why do I feel things? Why do I like I see those colors, like what's happening? Like there are there is a thing it is like to be me, right? That is one issue. That's what
Mm,
I think of as like the hard problem of consciousness is what, like, why do I have that? And I don't for a fact know that you have it. I assume other humans have it by
mm,
default. I think most of us assume that, almost all of us assume that, right? But like, I don't have any actual logical proof that you have that subjective experience, that like ability to perceive qualia, right?
mm,
Um, despite despite that, I think people then conflate a lot of other things with that, right? So uh specific like our brain is neurons, they do fire, it is a
mm,
computational system. Like as far as I'm concerned, uh when I solve a math problem, I am not like that's not the consciousness thing doing. That's not like my
yeah.
own subjective ability to perceive qualia. That's I am playing out an algorithm in my brain, right? As far as I'm concerned. And when
Yeah.
I look at there's a lot of stuff people conflate with consciousness. They conflate creativity with consciousness. They conflate self-awareness with consciousness. I think a lot of animals have that same subjective inner experience, but are not self-aware. They're not capable of doing the computations necessary to build a world model that takes into account their own self and then like does like a self-recursive loop where they are aware of themselves. They don't do that, most of them anyways.
Mm,
Like I think like dolphins probably do, some of them like elephants maybe, I don't know. There's like a list of animals that might do it. But like the I really think most of the time when someone's talking about consciousness and critiquing it, what they're actually talking about for almost any given phenomenon they're listing is an algorithm. It is an algorithm. I really do think if you make a properly advanced reinforcement learning system and you give it an incentive
mm,
to create an internal model of itself and its own interaction with the environment, it will become self-aware. Now, does it have that internal sense of like, I swear to God, I see colors and there's something it feels like to be me? Probably not based off our
yeah.
current definitions. But like, does it have self-awareness? Can it like create a computational model of itself internally that it can use to help predict the future and how itself will interact with the future? Yes. Like I think that most of these things, creativity, self-awareness, a bunch of this stuff, I really do think they are algorithms. They are very, very crazy, very, very good algorithms, but they are algorithms. And then when we think of like the hard problem of consciousness, the whole like subjective sense,
Mm,
um, that is a whole philosophy question that I think is really not relevant because like I have still not solved that question in relative to you. I don't know for a fact that you have that thing I'm referring to as consciousness, that like internal sense of like you are literally experiencing you like kind of thing, right? It's the that you actually feel the way I feel. I don't know it for a fact. And
mm,
like at certain points when these models get good enough, it's like I if I can't prove it for Joel,
mm,
like don't get me wrong, it's
mm,
more likely for Joel because Joel is more like me than a GPT is,
mm,
but technically I can prove for anything. And like if you want
mm,
my personal belief on this, like what I actually subscribe to, I think most humans subscribe to other humans have that sense of internal sense of thing,
mm,
like almost all humans do, but like almost all humans subscribe to that. I think most humans subscribe to sufficiently complex animals also have a sense of like experience of the world that they really do feel things and whatnot. And some humans even go as far as to say like plants do kind of thing. They have like an internal sense of the world or whatever the heck it is.
mm,
They feel things. Personally, I think even electrons do. I think that internal subjective sense of feeling is an intrinsic quality of matter and energy. I think that's just like a by default thing. And that the way that an electron like the thing that it is like to be an electron is just way simpler than human. Electrons can't compute. There is a I think that when an electron bounces off each other, two of them bounce off each other, there is like a subjective experience that was had there, like a feeling
Mm.
almost that is just it's not complex. There's no emotion, there's no like computation, there's no rationality, none of that stuff. But like there is a thing it is like to be a part of the universe. The universe that kind of experiences itself, if that makes sense. That's my personal take on it. And
Mm.
that like that question that we have like since the dawn of time of like why the heck do I feel whatever the heck? It's not that like we're unique. It's just that we have speech and we can talk to each other and talk about that thing, whereas electrons can't talk about that thing. That's my personal opinion. And so to that degree, I do think that like GPTs have that, and that what it is like to be a GPT is very different from what it is like to be you and me. Ours is way more complex and intricate and interesting, obviously, but
Mm.
my personal opinion is there is some subjective sense of experience, however, absurdly limited. And that's most things that people talk about consciousness with create like, oh, consciousness is creativity, consciousness is self-awareness, and the ability to like recognize yourself in a mirror or something. Those are all algorithms. They're algorithms. And the GPT can do algorithms. And
Mm.
once the GPT does those algorithms, just it makes sense the same way it makes sense to me to treat you as a conscious being because you act like one. If it's acting like one as well, I'm going to treat it that way. That makes sense.
Yeah, like yeah, these are all like very complex topics. Like,
Yeah.
sure. So I've recently like read a research paper, right? It's called Conscious AI. So they've proposed that yeah, as you said, speech is like they told language, the creation of their own language is somewhat related to consciousness. They said in those paper, like they made two AI agents and they made and they've put them in a certain environment, and then they've asked the AI agents to like create their own signals and like communicate with each other. And also they have each AI agent has to like understand the internal state of the other AI agent, and then it also has to like convey its own internal state. So so they have proposed this idea in which own language, and they have like agree on signals, and they also have like track some environment variables and all. They have did I think they have I think they have did some experiment and all. I have
Mhm.
read that paper in which again the only way we could determine a conscious being is through like expressing themselves maybe. Uh, yeah, again, kind of makes sense. So
Yeah.
yeah. So another paper you have read or another video you have done is intelligence a measure of consciousness, right? You have that paper like not any points on that maybe, yeah, for me to like study more on that.
Yeah, I remember that one a bit. So, according to my definitions a second ago, those definitions are like experience is that fundamental thing that I was saying I think we all have. Let's call consciousness the self-awareness algorithm, the ability to like reference yourself.
Mm.
And then there's other things too. There's creativity, like and one of them is intelligence, right? I really do think that we can think of if we forget the whole experience thing for a second. I'm thinking in terms of algorithms and which ones we have. That paper was not using my definitions, but the way I'm going to interpret the paper right now, to my best of my memory, because that was a while ago, I think,
Yeah.
is roughly things that are more intelligent probably have more algorithms going on by definition, if anything,
Yeah.
or more
Yeah.
complicated or more useful algorithms, right? And the way I view this thing is like in terms of the whole experience is like the algorithms that you are running, they flavor your experience. Like you are just the experience, the one unknowing all thing that perceives or whatever, in my opinion. But like the you could say levels of consciousness, you could say flavors of consciousness or categories or types or whatever it is, like not conscious but of experience. Like the self-awareness algorithm is one of them. Their whole point was that they think that intelligence can be used as a measure for consciousness or for the self-awareness algorithm, right? I do see that. I really do think that like the way that internal subjective feeling that we get, the experience is among people is very, very different. I think that the way I experience the world and like the internal sense of just how the world feels day to day and moment to moment is very different from yours and from my grandfather's and etc. Right? and their whole thing, to my memory, was just that like uh we can look at intelligence, which I don't know how they defined it. It might have been IQ in humans and like ability to do benchmarks and models. I forget exactly. It's been a while. But to say that it's a proxy for just how good your algorithms are, yeah, makes sense to me. I apologize if I don't remember the paper well enough to actually say
Yeah,
too much in detail or anything. It's been a while, but
yeah. Nice. I'll actually like try to read it again, after the podcast and all that. I'll try to read it. So
mm,
yeah, I mean, can I tell you something? In my school, they have recently like conducted like an IQ test and all. They said, this is IQ test, and you know what questions they asked?
mm.
Like they asked like, what is the capital of that country? What is the capital of this country? And this, and they told like this is the IQ test, like and all, and like yeah, it's very crazy. Like, I
Yeah,
mean,
whatever that score gave you, if those were the questions, that's not an IQ test. Please don't listen to it. That's
yeah,
so sad to hear.
yeah,
Um, for people who don't know, IQ tests were first made by a guy named I don't remember if it was Gauss, if it was the not it wasn't Gauss. It was it started with a G. It was a guy who was one of the first people who was like a psychologist in America,
uh,
right? And it was just a classic America, separate people based off of this thing and
yeah.
find a way to discriminate, all this stuff. It's one of the classic stories of history that we don't look back on fondly, right? And the first IQ tests, they were literally just like um ways to prove that people who didn't have the same education from the same country or from like whatever backgrounds were just not as smart as white people who were
Mm,
rich, which was bullshit,
yeah.
obviously. And they had questions like that. It was like, uh, what was Shakespeare's most popular play? Like, come
Yeah.
on, dude,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Now, modern IQ tests, the idea is that they are just pattern recognition. So if they might have had these questions as well. Hopefully they did, but they might not have. Modern IQ tests, they show you patterns of just like shapes, for example, in a row, and they say like, what's the next one? And that's it. And that is still not perfect because a lot of cultures don't think in terms of like forward progression of time, for example. There's other problems with it, but it is pretty good, assuming same culture, the same cultural backgrounds and like education as you. You take two people who had the same like schooling or whatever, roughly like both in the same, even just both being in America, not even just being in America, both being in the same like high school and middle school and elementary school roughly, then you compare them on that test, it will be pretty reasonable in terms of
Mm,
like predicting their success throughout life. Um, as one of the many factors that predicts those things with other stuff.
mm,
Um, and the questions of like, what is the capital of this country? Well, like, let me
yeah.
tell you, Americans would not do very well on a test asking for capitals of other countries. Let me tell you that, right? They
Yeah.
would do
Yeah.
very poorly in the scheme of the world, right? Um, so I'm just not fond of overall. The other thing I'd say about IQ tests is that the kind of person who knows their IQ score and talks about it is not someone who it has acted on that IQ in any way and has actually succeeded in anything. Any
Yeah.
person you ever meet who is smart and accomplished is
Mm,
not going to walk around saying their IQ
mm.
test. People who walk around like, my IQ is 130, 140, like chances are you look at the rest of their life, they have not accomplished anything.
Yeah.
It's a coping mechanism. And I would also say like that it's not a good idea to view your capabilities as predetermined just
Yeah.
psychologically. Even to the degree that like let's say we have a perfect IQ measurement that's better than one right now, and there are good statistics roughly showing that like if you have that perfect comparison of like same American high school, then it is roughly accurate. Even then, it's like the moment you are told your IQ, whatever it is, your performance and everything after that will just drop
Mm,
because the idea that like your success and intelligence is predetermined itself makes you work not as hard and makes you feel more hopeless, even if you
mm.
got a high score. It's just not a good thing to
Yeah.
be thinking in general. IQ is useful for the military that needs to make sure you can like read instructions and not get killed from basically not read instructions because there are some people who just like just people with mental disabilities who just should not be in the military, for example, like just, it would be dangerous for them kind of
Yeah.
thing or
Yeah.
dangerous for other people as well. Like there are some very minimal scenarios where it is useful to take an IQ test. It is like you're trying to diagnose someone with a mental health disorder. Sometimes IQ is useful in that when it comes to Down syndrome or whatever it is, right? Like certain things,
Mm,
it is useful in some small scenarios, but like people in general should not be getting IQ tests or taking
mhm,
them,
mhm.
thinking about them or getting like too caught up in what it was. Like I know PhDs who have below average IQ, and they're and like I know this for a fact. Like I've this girl I used to date a little bit. She had a below 100 IQ, successful PhD, like doing well in the field, right? Like it's not. Don't worry about it. It's not
Mm,
that deep. It's like my
yeah,
thing with those tests is it's a bunch of BS.
yeah, for sure, for sure. So in this sense, like, so can you like, is there like a small definition for intelligence, like, so that we could like compare it to with AI, see if it is intelligent? Is there like a specific way of uh conveying, narrating it?
Interesting. Um, yeah, so the thing with that's weird about AI is that like in humans, when people get smarter, people or smarter people, the things that we are smarter in all scale in the same way. If someone goes up 10 points in IQ, uh, I know people love to talk about like, oh, I have a specific kind of intelligence. The reality of back when I was a psychology major, the research into this was the whole like separate types of intelligences of I am a music intelligence, I'm a math intelligence. Those don't actually start happening really until 145 and up, which is very rare. When you have people who are below 145 and they say, I am a music-based intelligence, I am a math-based intelligence, actually, you are probably just as good at math as you are at music, but you are interested in music. And because
Oh,
of that, you have gotten very good at music and you have hated doing math all your life and you've avoided math and you have become worse at math by ignoring it and become better at music by encouraging it. So like in reality, the whole like I am a music savant versus a math savant isn't a thing till 145 and up. The reason why I say that is because like for most humans, most of the time, like below 145, which is 99+% of us, right? Uh, when you see an IQ bump of 5, 10 points, whatever, chances are that like if you have a 10-point higher IQ than me, that corresponds to you are a bit better than me in both music and math and reading down the line, everything. Like all
okay, okay.
humans have roughly the same baseline of the skills, and when your IQ goes up, you roughly go up in everything. Now, in reality and practice, I might still be better at math than you for the aforementioned reason, because maybe you were into music, I was into math kind of thing. But like humans roughly go up that well, like that level. Like we have if there's a list of all human tasks, when IQ goes up, they all go up roughly the same amounts. With AI, that's not the case. Is the
Mm,
list of things they are good at and
mm,
things they are bad at are just totally out of whack with ours. So like even if you were to try and like all you could do, in my opinion, then like there's no like direct in the same way that like an IQ test, at least the ones that I mentioned that were good in the pattern recognition, the in theory ones, it's only testing one skill. It's testing pattern recognition. But because all humans have roughly the same average, same baseline, same like most humans are better at this than that kind of thing, even though we only did a test of one skill, we could still compare ourselves and predict how good that skill predicts our math ability and our music ability, right? Like it's still roughly works. It's a proxy.
mm,
With AIs, because they are learning different skills at different rates from humans, there are some things right now that GPTs are literally already superhuman in or are already above average humans in. And there are some things that they cannot beat a 2-year-old in, right? Like the skill distribution for GPTs is all I've used us as like a flat baseline of like the average human is uh on a scale of 1 to 10 is a 5 on every single like math, reading, etc. Like we use as a baseline. The
yeah.
GPTs are all over the place on the skills, right? Because of that, it's not so easy to just give the GPT an IQ test of one skill and hope that that proxies over and carries out to other skills. In reality, what you have to do if you want to compare GPTs to humans is you've just got to test every single skill manually, which is very time consuming, very
Yeah.
intensive. It sucks. And that's what we do is we benchmark because we have MMLU and all these things and they're
Yeah.
all problems like there are
Different.
a
Yeah.
bunch of errors. But like that's what we do is we just test the AI on the GPT on like 50 different benchmarks, and we hope that it's a proxy. And like those 50 benchmarks are testing probably a couple hundred skills out of thousands or tens or hundreds of thousands of human skills, right? So it's still not a great measure. Like those benchmarks don't give you a good idea as to theory of mind, for example, or as to like ability to execute plans long term. Like there's one of the problems with those benchmarks. It's like what we need to be doing to judge the intelligence of AI is building not only more accurate benchmarks, but like we need to grow the range of skills we are testing. We need to just get every single skill there is. What I would love, benchmark wise, is you just go down to every single place of employment, every kind of like worker, every like whatever it is, like every lawyer or office clerk or mailman or whatever it is, right? And you have you get like 10 mailmen and 10 coal miners and 10 lawyers and 10 doctors, like of every single discipline, and the good ones, I guess, and you have them build a test and you say, my criteria is build a test that would impress you if the AI, like in relative to your
Mm.
job, if the AI could do this. And if we had a benchmark that was just like every single job and like performance on that job kind of thing, then I'd say this is pretty good. Like I'm happy with the intelligence
Mm.
comparison here. But like right now, what we have is like multiple choice questions that have huge inaccuracies in them, and like or needle in a haystack measurements
Mm.
of like needle in a haystack of a woman in context window. It's a bunch of really weird tasks that are not very reflective how models do, which is why it sucks where like you can look at GPT-4 didn't just pass the bar exam, it beat 90% of lawyers on the bar exam. But is GPT-4 actually gonna do that well as a lawyer right now? No,
Uh,
it could write you a good rough draft for like a defending yourself for a traffic ticket for sure.
yeah.
But like, is it gonna actually outperform top tier corporate
Actually.
lawyers or
Mm.
anything who it score better than the bar? So like that's why I say like intelligent measuring intelligence in these models is something we are not doing very well yet. And I would love a probably a
But
huge consulting firm go about and like require for like a year that every company they consult with build them their own personalized 10 question test or something and make that into a benchmark. That would be
yeah,
amazing. I'd love to see that. But until we get that, like we don't have a good way right now to measure intelligence in these things.
again, yeah. I think, yeah, I mean, yeah, I know. Uh, I think, yeah, I do completely agree with what you said. Uh, Maybe AI should become intelligent. Maybe AI should become conscious. And you have also mentioned it in one of your videos that is the only way to build AI that is safe. Is to make it conscious. I think one of your videos said about. So anyway, the other thing I am interested in about is that how is the economy, how will AI influence everything, right? I mean, it's actually kind of scary, right? All the systems are very fragile, and once AI comes in, like almost all employment maybe can be like automated and all. So what do you think will happen economically? How is the system going to change and all?
Yeah, so the first thing we all jump to is like what jobs go away. And like I'm gonna first play the role of the economist that like I was
Mm.
talking with back when I worked with economists kind of thing,
Yeah.
like what they were saying. Um, is the if you look at the history of how new technologies play out with taking jobs away, is we just find new things to do. That's I'm gonna disagree later. I'm gonna disagree with this, but like for now, let's just go with the economist point of view. Is like humans have infinite demand, or at least under like a capitalist society, we have infinite demand, right? So we're
Mm.
always gonna find a new thing to want and to request and to whatever. So like it used to be that 95+% of even in America people work on the farm. Everyone was a farmer. Like all in the
Mm.
world, even like everywhere, right? We're farmers, everyone. But uh steam engine, whatever the heck, cotton gin, I don't know which one's a bunch of things,
Mm.
right? Nowadays, different countries it's different, but like in America, it's a bad example. Excuse me.
Mm.
Still sick.
Mm.
America's a bad example, but like in the Western world now, I think we're at like 2% of the Western world is farmers, and like America is the world's breadbasket. Is we have the most, I think,
Mm.
or like one of the most food exports. Like we
Yeah.
really export food, right? Like we just transitioned away from farming into manufacturing, and even now we've left manufacturing. We're all doing intelligence
Mm.
work on the computer all day, right? Like the traditional economic history is we have infinite demand, we will find new things to do. It's not a big deal. However, I'm going to disagree with that now, is the difference here is that every previous technological advancement has been inventing tools for humans to use, and that's
Yeah.
it. Like we have like the steam engine, the printing press, fire, all the bow and arrow. It's all tools for humans to use. And when you invent tools for humans to use, you allow us to spend less time on that task for getting more output from it and spend more time on other things. And that's just how it's been working. AI, specifically AGI, in theory, is not can be used as a tool. You can prompt it, you can use it as a tool for your own job, sure, right? But it's not just a tool. Like it is intelligence. And intelligence is the thing that uses tools. Intelligence is the thing that invents tools, uses tools, and wants tools that it can use, right? So that's a whole
Mm.
different thing. Is
Yeah.
like I think right now we are still very much in a tool phase. ChatGPT is still very much a tool. We have not yet seen the first actually successful agentic frameworks. Like the best they can do right now is make you a little Pong game that's glitchy. Like
Mm.
it's not, they're not that good. Once we get actual, not just agents, but like self-driven agents that can fully like decide for themselves, let's go make a profit, make a company, new company idea kind of thing. That's a whole different ball game of like, well, why do we need a human to do something? And if you talk to Americans, most of the reaction is, I don't want it to take my job because we're thinking
Mhm.
from a context of like we don't have like unlike most Western countries at least, I don't know what the deal is in India, but like
Mm.
Americans like we don't have free healthcare and you will become homeless without a job kind of thing. Like you will get shoved down to the streets with no food or water. Like that's
Mm.
what we'll do to you kind of thing, right? And under that context, it makes sense to be scared of losing your job. But like if 95% of us were to lose our job in a 5-year, 10-year period, whatever, like the society would be restructured. People who are freaking out about like, I don't want my job to go away, like they're not taking into account we would have to restructure the way society exists fundamentally. And also, there are people who I talk to constantly who are like, oh, but I want to work. I don't know what I would do if it wasn't working. And I'm like, you work at a call set, you work at a call center, you work at a law firm, you realize like you could be volunteering at a food shelter or something. You could be instead of doing a job, you could be hiking the Appalachian Mountains. You could be being an artist all day,
Yeah.
every day.
Yeah.
There's so many things to do. Like the world, the universe is like infinite possibilities. Most people, at least in America, mindset wise, are so ingrained in their job, ingrained in this identity of themselves as like, I am an accountant. That's who I am. Like, bro, you don't actually enjoy accounting.
Mhm.
I know you like spreadsheets. I know you love spreadsheets. But you can do cooler spreadsheets than the finances of some B-list corporation. We can do some cooler spreadsheets. You can get your spreadsheet kick and it'll be way more fun. You'll be doing like, I don't know, political analysis, something or other. Like there's so many things to do. Um, I really think that long term past that, like that's all well and good. Like we can rework society. The
Mm.
thing that I think people don't talk about that is most interesting to me is like in terms of jobs and how companies function and everything. Assuming we still have it's not an Age of Ultron scenario, we have like a prompt-based system still. It's still just like GPTs, right?
Yeah.
When you take people today who, like yourself, are self-driven
Mm.
and want and are interested in like crazy diverse topics and like want to discover things about the world and whatever, if you had access to an entire company, if you had your own personal working for you for free, CEO, accountant, computer science department, engineering team, sales team, etc. If you had access to all of those as just free labor for you, I don't even want to, I can't even imagine what you would do with access to that. Some idea that you have that you wouldn't have to like, oh, I have to go ask for venture capital funding, but I don't know any
Mhm.
venture capitalists. Oh, I have to put in hundreds of hours and quit my job. No, 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 none of that. All you have to do is have an idea. It's literally all you have to do. And then give some high level guidance as to how you want the branding to look and the idea to be implemented or whatever, right? Like
Mm.
the difference that happens when suddenly power is decentralized and a 12-year-old girl in Ghana can have a world-changing idea and create the next billion-dollar product, like that's insane. Like I don't
Yes.
care the whole like temporary job loss when we have like decentralization of power and the ability to just do things and to just
On
make
your
change that quickly on that type of scale. I'm excited. I'm very pro all this stuff because of that.
Yeah, for sure. There'll be like a huge possibility for scientific advancement and a lot of things, right? We could accomplish like a lot of things. Human accomplishment will like accelerate suddenly. For
Exactly.
sure, for sure. But but when we come to countries like India, where the population is huge and
Mhm.
people do not have necessary education about artificial intelligence and all, uh, power might not be like AI. Even the technology of AI might not be very decentralized. I
Mhm.
still do think like some corporates might like control everything, and then uh, AI might not be like equally reachable.
Mhm.
What do you think? Like, is that even
Yeah.
how in on or like a large country? How do we think like we can make AI decentralized or
Yeah, so that's my biggest concern
yeah.
is big companies convincing governments to like limit people and not let them have access to this stuff and all that whatever, right? That's my biggest concern by far. Because we have a history of that happening with other
Mm,
technologies and other stuff, right? Like the whole IP field is just that, is just big companies protecting stuff that they shouldn't have access to, effectively,
mm,
like shouldn't have exclusive rights to. Um, the the big thing that I want to emphasize is like I do think there'll be a tough transition period in the sense of like OpenAI gets GPT-6 first, right? And then 6 months later, Google gets it, right? And
mm,
by the time that like not just Llama 3 comes out, or not, sorry, Llama 8 or whatever, but like by the time it is small enough to fit on an Android One phone, those like
mm,
$50 phones that you can
yeah,
get like are more
yeah.
common in countries like India, right? Like that will take a bit. I'm gonna guess 5 year delay until what I want is you can locally run those models on an Android One phone. That's like my goal, right? Is that's what I would love to be happening.
Mm,
I do think once it happens, and once you have these people who are maybe not as well educated about this stuff or stuff in general, right? Who don't have access to this stuff, and it's like all very new. Like what we've seen with technology in the past is that what tends to happen is uh, countries that are not the Western United States, whatever, countries that have like less access to this stuff, they tend to just skip things. They tend to just skip whole technologies. Like, right? Like countries that are getting cell service the first time right now, they're not having to go through 2G, 3G, 4G. They're going straight to 5G. They're like, why would we bother all this stuff? Same like they never, and not to mention landlines, telephones, and all this like landline stuff. Like they just skip technology. That's like a constant thing that's been happening for decades now of third world, I hate the term, but whatever, countries just skip the technology. And the thing that's interesting is like, or I definitely see an issue, especially of capture by corporations and everything.
mm,
Like, I see that as more of an issue in somewhat like the United States, if anything. Because like, if a company in India tries to capture AI for their own use or whatever, like it's not as clear to me that that is like that they're going to like run into small villages with no internet and like do something bad because like those villages are just like off the map to them, right? Like
mm,
for the most
yeah.
part. Like, maybe in like big cities, whatever, it'll be more of an issue. But like my impression is that like companies capturing regulation stuff is more an issue in the Western world because they have more reason and ability to mess with us because we're expensive. Like I
Yeah.
cost so much, so many like compared to just like because of where you live,
Mm,
the amount of money that I cost per day to keep me alive is so
yes.
much higher. It's absurd, right? Like
Yeah.
we're the ones that are that they want to stop paying. Like the if anything, like people in third world countries that are willing to like to work for very, very cheap, it's like especially once you all can educate, or like people in India can like educate themselves more easily thanks to this AI
Yeah.
stuff. Like, well, what happens when GPT not 6, 7, but 5 comes out? And it's pretty good, but it's not perfect. Do you want to hire an American who charges like hundreds of dollars per hour, just so much money per hour for like what is effectively a fact-checking job? Because like at a certain point, like it'll be like the GPT can mostly do it, but it needs to be checked. That'll be like a whole in-between period.
Yeah.
Like Americans are going to be really shitty for that. I charge a lot of money for my time. And for fact checking that someone with less of an education could do for $1 per hour, like
Mm.
if anything, that I
Yeah.
see a lot of opportunity here for the third world poorer countries to benefit off of skipping straight to 5G Android One phones and locally run models, and they're using their cheaper labor to do the tasks that like um, are still worth being done just because like for accuracy rate's sake. Whereas like here in America, my old boss charged $1,000 per hour. Like, and he frankly, for what he was doing was not all of his job, to be fair. But like part of his
Ah.
job was just a fact checking thing, right?
Oh.
It's why like the incentives of these corporations is to get rid of us in America in the
Yeah.
rich world first because we are the expensive ones. We are the ones they want to automate away, if
Yeah.
anything. Not to complain or anything. I'm not saying like, oh, poor us, not at all. But like I see a lot of opportunity here for like people in third world countries to be kind of overlooked for a while, maybe even some benefit off of like these in-between jobs that are kind of odd and just require fact checking type stuff, and hopefully at a certain point do gain access to their own personal AGI that teaches them how to uh, reclaim the soil that and the ecosystem that's been lost to climate change in their area to help like fix these local problems, to help build a business, to help uh, construct their own insert technology here piece, right? They think they can help them. I see a lot of opportunity there. That's gonna be very interesting. Whereas like here in America, it's like we're gonna just be having riots and complaining because we lost our jobs and our government didn't give us free healthcare or social benefits.
Mm.
And now like we're all homeless despite being rich because we're silly and can't get our shit together. That's how I see like this playing out. And I'm hopeful that it's an equalizing force. Um, I would love to somehow contribute to the equalizing force, make smaller locally run models, all this stuff. But we'll see. I mean, I can't predict the future. I
Yeah.
don't know how. That's just my intuition as to how it will play out.
Of course. And one thing I'm like really concerned about is like the education system in India is like uh, probably not very uh, yeah, probably not very good, especially considering the rise of AI. Maybe we need changes both in the economic systems, right? We need
Mhm.
like maybe come up with like new economic structures where like only AI works and humans get like equal amount of resources and all, maybe something like that. Uh, some economic change like that is a must. And then coming to how AI can influence political situation, right? You also made another video. I think it is called, I think your own work. It is called Meta Conversational Swarm Intelligence. Can you,
Oh
uh,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. Can you give a brief introduction on that? Like, and also,
Yeah. So mhm.
uh,
What was
and
it?
also you also in that paper you also like gave some introduction on something, right? Okay. Anyway, just give us the brief explanation on
Yeah.
MCSA. Yeah.
So the idea here is that human communication right now
Yeah.
in large groups is tough, right? Like you go
Mm.
to Twitter or something, Elon Musk, Kim Kardashian say something, everyone sees it, and you or I say something, no one sees it. And don't get me wrong, like they're great, no shade to them, I guess. Actually, also kind of shade to them, but whatever. But we have this dynamic right now in whether it be like 100-person Zoom call or even a 20-person Zoom call, all the way up to Twitter and democracy, like as a whole or whatever it is, right? Where very few people have a disproportionate amount of say and of loudness to their voice, right? Which is not good because like the odds that they're the ones who actually have good ideas are low.
Yeah.
Historically, idea generation is a numbers game. Is you need more people looking at the problem. That's the way we play. That's the way we actually succeed in the game. When you have uh into when you have the ability to have and act upon ideas
Mm.
restricted to a small class of people, they get into tunnel vision, like they like get like fat and happy with like their overly fat and happy lives. It's
Mm.
not a good idea. What you need is lots of people contributing good ideas. And what this paper, these researchers out of DC near me, and I think it was LA, San Francisco, a combination, maybe Stanford, I forget.
Yeah.
I forget where the school was. They had this idea that I kind of like took their thing and I didn't like it as much and I like edited a little bit. But basically, it's called conversational swarm intelligence,
Mm.
where instead of doing 100-person Zoom call, like let's say it's like a class, like you're at IIT, right? And your professor has 100 people in the class kind of thing. If you can't have a conversation in that room, like there's 200
Mm.
people, you'll end up with one or two students very loud, talking a lot, everyone else being
Yeah.
quiet, right? Professors try and fix this by going to breakout rooms. We all little groups of five kind of thing,
Mm.
and you all talk
Yeah.
to five, whatever it is, right? And that's kind of the idea behind this is instead of having Twitter be millions of people and they're all just shouting into the void, what we do is we say, we're going to split all of you up, all 100 of you, into 20 groups of five. And in your group of five, you're going to address whatever question it is. You're going to have a discussion about like the
Mm.
things that concern you, whatever it might be. And then at the end of the hour or
Mm.
of the day or the week or whatever it is, we have ChatGPT summarize the key interesting points from your conversation that you had. And we then send that summary to two other groups of the 20. And you receive two summaries from two other groups. And now you get to, for the next hour, day, week, whatever, talk about more thoughts you have and the summaries of those groups. And if one of those other groups that you got summaries of had a good idea, you can now discuss that idea. And so every group sends off to two groups, sends summaries. And after 3, 4 time periods, the information has had a chance to propagate throughout the entire group of 100 after like the fourth hour, whatever it is, or the 40th minute, whatever it is, whatever time period you choose. And through this, we can effectively have an actual good quality conversation
Mm.
with a big group as if it were a small group
Mm.
is the
Yeah.
idea, right?
Yeah.
And these researchers, they were doing like a whole voting algorithm and using it for simple stuff like finding the right decision in a small group. Like I don't love what they were doing. I don't think they have like the right idea with it. I'm thinking in terms of like large scale. Is like we really ramp this up and we say, what if we not only have our 100-person group now have better conversations, more effective conversations where like maybe you beforehand would not have spoken up, and now they're in a small group, you actually will speak up. What if we actually do our class, our 100-person professor, our 100-person class has combines our conversation with the other philosophy class in the other Zoom classroom,
Yeah.
and those each get like summarized and summary sent across, right?
Yeah.
And through this, like that's I added that part, the hierarchical. That was mine. The
Yeah.
conversational form
Adding.
was theirs. I added the hierarchical parts,
Yeah.
and I said like we can effectively just scale this up continuously to being like a replacement for democracy. Is like regular voting
Yeah.
is so if you have like the smart voting systems that some European countries have, where it's like, oh, you rank choice order, whatever it is, they
Yeah.
can work pretty well, but there's still like a person representing you. It's not actually you getting to vote on each topic, right? Like in America, it's even worse. We have just two options and they're both terrible, right?
Yeah.
Like the what this effectively does, if executed properly, and if these GPT-5, 6 is smart enough to actually carry information well, is we can effectively create a like a voting system that is just conversation based. There's no more tallying votes. It's just conversation based. And it's not just voting. That's like the one that I like would love like a long-term goal. A better short-term goal would be a small company or a medium-sized company. Like the goal of middle management roles is effectively to transformation. Your boss who doesn't do work himself, he just like he listens to you, he gets summaries of what you're doing, and then he sends that information across the company and gives someone else directions or orders. The whole goal of middle management is replaced by this thing. We can now have a company where like we only have bottom level flat hierarchy people who are actually building stuff or selling stuff, the actual engineers, salespeople, etc. And what you get with that is hopefully a company that is now no longer hiring middle management, only hiring effective workers. So it's hopefully running cheaper and hopefully just doing better because you can customize these agents. You can say like only share engineering group information with the manufacturing group. Don't share it with sales team. I want to be like customizable infinitely to where like we can replace hopefully one day democracy, governments, like definitely short term, medium term companies kind of thing.
Yeah.
And like a simple test case, like just to show that it works, would be like a online book club. You have a 100-person online book club. Let's just make a very, very good book club using this technology where like people can have nice, intimate conversations, but we still get a full group wide discussion kind of thing is the idea.
Yeah, for sure. Actually, we just had elections here in India.
Oh,
Like just,
nice.
yeah. And I completely agree that people should elect ideas and not people and to represent it.
Mm,
Like here in India, there is one person, I'll not name him. He's the current PM, Modi. Anyway, I'll do it. Like,
yeah.
yeah, people elect him just because of his personality. Like they look at him as a god and all, and like all the media he controls, and like, yeah, they narrate him as a god. They show him as a god, and people just worship him. And also on based on religion, right? He uses or based on communism, he's the no he uses religion, and like all the Hindus should vote for him and all. He uses that, and I think that India would like very much benefit from this idea.
Mm.
So thank you, Evan, for doing this. And lastly, is there any like interesting research fields or research topics inside AI, or any topics that are interesting for the viewers maybe to study on, or maybe any new
Oh,
thing that you have, any new paper that you have read, and anything in interesting
anything
directions.
specific?
Uh, if you
Depends
have,
on, I don't know. It's hard to choose. The yeah, that's just it's such a broad, hard to choose question. Um, the I would just broadly state open source stuff, new architectures, but don't just willy-nilly look at them because most of them are not going to do well, kind of thing. Wait until my metric is once Meta and their llama models incorporate it, now it's actually part of like the zeitgeist kind of thing. So I'm big into paying attention to Meta, even though I don't want to stand them too much, but like
yeah,
I don't like Zuckerberg per se, but like that open source is something I love. Um, Mechanistic interpretability, the field of looking into these models and tearing them apart, I think it's very promising, especially for alignment, because the human brain, I can't open your brain and tear you apart. Like even with neurosurgery, like we can't actually
yeah,
go that in depth because it would kill you, right? These models, we can look at every little thing. And the field of mech interpret, that's what they do, is they try and look at every little thing and really tear apart how is this thing working? And that I think in terms of like satisfying both my weird alignment views and the alignment concerns of most general doom or alignment people is the way to go. Is like mech interp, I think, especially as it like ramps up in the future. It's like because 6 months ago there were like 100 people doing it total, like 100 people in like the mech interp fields. It's
that's
growing much more since then, and it will be keep growing. I think that is probably if you're concerned about alignment, that is the most promising thing to look into. And the other thing that I think that I'm most excited for to happen in the coming years is uh, decentralized blockchain federated training. There are already a few projects on this. One popular one is called Petals, but what I want to see is I want to see no more $10 billion supercomputers. I want to see every single iPhone, and I say iPhone because the hardware happens to be very well suited for this
mm,
compared to Android phones, which are more all over the place in terms of their
yeah,
hardware. Having the fact that iPhones are so numerous and have like such homogeneous hardware, I want to see whenever my iPhone's on a charger, it is contributing some training compute to training GPT-6 or 5 or whatever the heck,
Uh,
right? I see a situation where open source, not GPT because that's OpenAI, but like llama models.
mm,
I want Facebook to stop using their supercomputers and start using every nerd can download the app and contribute their own phone's computing power to the process. And through that, we get not just
more,
through Facebook, but like I want it such that like you, Joel, have access to compute now. Because now to get compute, you don't have to be hired by Facebook or something or
yeah,
Apple or whatever. Now to get compute, you can just put a proposal up on some Reddit page or Discord server or something, and everyone can vote. And with their little blockchain smart contracts votes, we all like Joel's new PyTorch code. Let's try it. It looks like it'll do well. And then next thing you know, you can zero cost to yourself or to anybody else, just the cost
mm,
of electricity that gets like around the world kind of thing. It'll take longer, but you can now train your own 10 billion parameter model. That's what I'm very excited about the future of is decentralized federated training and inference, where like not just locally run models, because locally run models are all limited. They're never going to be as good as the big supercomputer GPT, whatever the heck stuff. But like if we do a decentralized manner, we can actually get the open source community to combine their efforts and get more compute overall than Google, Microsoft can compete with. And I'm very excited about that. That's like a big thing that I'm not working on because blockchain math, it's a whole thing. I actually like was doing a bit of it in college. It's not fun. But people are working on it and it's very interesting. I'm very
yeah,
excited for that.
for sure. Thanks, Evan. Thanks for coming to this podcast. Uh, I mean, we have you have we have discussed a lot of great things here. So I think can we end it? I think.
Yeah, man, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. It was
Uh,
very flattering to get requested for an interview. And I'm excited to see the channel goes in the future. I love what you're doing so far with just even more so than myself. You're just up there
uh,
like live streaming the process. I actually like that a lot. That's like I don't think you understand how useful that data will be in the future and how like effective it will be. I think it's gonna be really good, really, really
thank
good.
thanks a lot, Evan. And I'll yeah, and please stay in touch. We'll have some discussions in the future. Maybe sharing some thoughts in the future also.
Definitely, let's do a second one. And for
Yeah.
anyone watching, my YouTube channel is not Evan. It's
It's Tunador.
Tunadorable. So like link, I hope so. But
Yeah,
Tuna
I will
D O
link it.
R A B L E. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll also link your YouTube channel and I'll also link your GitHub page just because a lot of research papers he wrote, uh, they
Mm.
can be found in his GitHub page. I'll also link it down there. So thank you, Evan. It's it has been a absolute pleasure for me to talk to you. Right.
Likewise. Thanks for having me.
I end the recording.